Good afternoon. I'm Billy Couch, Police Chief for the College Station Police Department. This afternoon, I'd like to brief you on an incident that occurred throughout the day here in College Station. At approximately 9:45 a.m., we received a call of a civil disturbance in the area of an apartment complex located at 134 Luther Street in College Station. The caller reported a male was acting erratically, threatening them, and that the male was armed with a handgun. Officers responded to the area to investigate that call. There was a vehicle description given by the caller that was involved. One of the officers arriving to the area observed a male subject matching the description who was in a vehicle that matched that description given. The officer conducted a traffic stop on the vehicle in the apartment complex, and the occupant of the vehicle stopped the vehicle, exited the vehicle, and began to run away from the vehicle. And as the officer exited his vehicle, the male turned and fired rounds from a handgun at our officer before fleeing around the corner. The officer pursued the male, and the male entered into an apartment. The officer called for backup, and other responding units were able to set up a perimeter around this particular apartment building. Once the perimeter was set, the male broke out a second floor window and fired additional rounds at the officers that responded. We continued to set our perimeter and held the apartment. Once the apartment was secure, or the surrounding area around the apartment was secure, we began evacuating nearby residents because we felt they were threatened should the male continue to fire his weapon. Evacuated a number of residents around the apartment, and once the residents were safely evacuated, we started the process of trying to initiate a negotiation with the male subject. The male subject was communicating with us throughout the day off and on, although he would get agitated and fire additional rounds. It was a long-term negotiation because it would be intermittent with, they would establish communication and then it would break down. The male did fire multiple rounds. Fortunately, no one was struck today by the gunfire from this suspect, but we did continue that negotiation process. We learned early on that the subject had entered an apartment that was not his apartment. So we went through a lot of work trying to determine who the apartment belonged to, and we were able to confirm that the primary resident of that apartment was not at the apartment and that their children were at school. So once we confirmed that, we had good reason to believe that the male was in the apartment alone, and it was for that reason we didn't push. We just held what we had, and we continued trying to establish negotiations. Throughout the day, those negotiations got better, and I don't recall the time, but in the 2 o'clock hour, the male was negotiated out of the apartment and taken into custody without further incident. Subject is in custody at this time. The suspect's name is Jonathan Bridges. He's a black male, 122 of 1999. I don't have the charges that we'll have here locally, but he also did have a parole violation warrant out for his arrest. The residents around this affected apartment were evacuated hastily as we were working through this incident, and I would like to thank them for their cooperation with that evacuation and being displaced from your apartment the way that they were is uncomfortable and difficult, and I appreciate them for cooperating with us and understanding the nature of this incident. I also like to thank the surrounding police agencies that responded from throughout our area, offering to provide assistance, and we couldn't have met this safe conclusion without their support, so I appreciate that. And I'll be happy to take any questions you guys might have.
We heard that the suspect potentially kicked in a wall of another unit and went inside there. Is that true? And then are people in those units going to be able to go home tonight?
Yeah, we received that report from a neighboring apartment during the evacuation process. We went in and secured that, and we evacuated the residents of that apartment and went in and secured the apartment and posted our officers at that apartment. And as far as the maintenance is concerned, I don't know, I didn't see it, so I don't know the level of damage that was done to the apartment. That did occur though.
Did the responding officer for the initial disturbance call, did he ever fire back at the suspect?
He did not.
Did any of like your officers fire return fire at the suspect when he opened fire?
No rounds were fired by the police officers on scene today. Yes, sir.
It feels like College Station has seen a number of violent crimes recently. Are you concerned about a rise in violent crimes in the city?
Certainly, I'm concerned about violent crime. We have had some incidents lately that were more violent. We had an incident this week that was a violent incident where members of our community were killed. It's something you see nationwide. It's not just in our city. It's unfortunate that society has gotten to a point where violence is more tolerable, and we're seeing more of that here locally. We're doing what we can to continue to build partnerships in our community with our residents to help them understand what it takes to be secure and not become victims of crime. But yes, it is concerning that the crime is increasing.
Your department kind of stressed today how dangerous this suspect was. Was that apparent to them when they arrived on scene this morning?
It was apparent, yeah, throughout the incident. He fired multiple rounds at multiple different times throughout this incident. So yes, it was very apparent that he was dangerous.
There was, at times I saw some College Station utility trucks out there. Was there ever any kinds of power cut, or were they involved with the proceedings, or the what happened?
Yes, we had them involved. We needed their support as far as from a tactical standpoint. I'm not going to give the details, but yeah, we asked them to be responsive and be there in case we needed them.
What all different jurisdiction or different agencies were there to help assist in that?
I'll send out a follow-up tweet with all of them, but some of the primary agencies was the Bryan Police Department, the University Police Department, and the Brazos County Sheriff's Department. We also had assistance from the Department of Public Safety, troopers, and we also had members of our local FBI office that were there in support in case we needed it. A lot of them came out for that reason, to be there and be supportive, and many of them we staged in an area and put many of them to work. So again, we couldn't have done it without that support that we have here locally from law enforcement.
What review happens for your department after an incident like this?
Review as far as administratively, or?
Yeah, or after an incident like this, is there any processes that you guys go through?
Sure. I mean, we'll do what we call an after action, to where we kind of pull all the assets together and kind of learn what everyone did, and then they'll help us to identify any weak spots, things that we need to work on or improve on. We do that with any kind of critical incident like this. Right now, what we're really focused on is the crime scene, and our detectives will continue to work out there probably throughout the day and night, just collecting evidence and making sure that we've processed everything at that crime scene, so that we can really get a good, clear picture of really what happened today, to make sure that we have an understanding of the level of the offense and things like that.
Was the suspect a resident of College Station and the apartment complex?
I don't know for sure. He wasn't a resident of that apartment. I don't know where he's living at. I don't have his address.
I guess
I'm sorry. Will you all be releasing body cam or dash cam footage of the original call?
No, sir, I have no intentions of doing that. It's an active case right now.
Can you spell the suspect's name for us?
Jonathan, Jonathan Bridges.